When does a movie die? Does it collapse in one terrible moment? No, but there comes a time when its audience no longer believes in it. Then does a movie begin to die. Well, there are also movies that have never really lived in the first place. Written, directed, and produced by Francis Ford Coppola, Megalopolis was released in 2024 and stars Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, and Nathalie Emmanuel, among many others. It takes place in an imagined world where New York meets the Roman Empire. Overall, this movie is a mixed bag, and while it's highly rated by some, the general consensus is that this movie is odd, confusing, lacking certain elements like plot or character development. And while in my opinion that's true, some will defend Megalopolis and all its unorthodox elements. Some who even say that this movie is ahead of its time. And I mean,
one filmmaker has always been ahead of his time.
After all, Coppola's other movies like The Godfather and Apocalypse Now have followed similar trends. Some will even say, if you don't like it, it wasn't meant for you. And, ho boy, as an aspiring screenwriter and filmmaker, nothing grinds my gears more than someone telling me something's not meant for me. Especially since, after my first blind viewing of this movie at the theater, I've become obsessed with it. It's meant for me in all the wrong ways. I mean, I've seen it 5 times, which might be the most that anyone has ever bothered watching this thing. The point is, even the movies I don't like have very valuable things to offer. So let's take a look, shall we? Let's see how an artist can get in the way of his own work, and what happens when creativity meets ego. Now, how will you watch it without a plane ticket or Francis Ford Coppola wedged between you and your date at the movie theater? I don't know. But I strongly suggest you try, because it really is a movie worth watching. First though, I want to begin with some positives. The film's visuals are striking at certain moments. Sure, some were a little odd, but especially considering that the original effects team was fired over creative differences, they really pulled through in certain moments. Also, the very concept of merging the Roman Empire with New York is very cool. There's a lot you can do with that. For example, wrestling being a Colosseum sport is a great mix of ancient Roman and modern American culture. Would it be more interesting if we could connect the dots of ancient Rome, rather than the similarities being directly told to us? Yes, but I'll get to that later. But all I'm saying is that all the pieces are there, and I'll give props for that even if the execution is kinda...
You're anal as hell. I, on the other hand, am oral as hell.
Luckily, I'm also oral as hell, when speaking of this movie, of course. So, time for me to start complaining. At the beginning of the movie, after some buttery Lawrence Fishburne narration and Adam Driver displaying his time powers, we're hit with title card. Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, a fable. Now, putting your name on the title card of a movie is a bit much, and putting a fable only really achieves the I'm not like the other movies status. However, I will defend him in the case that if you're going to sell a portion of your wine business so that you can produce this movie for, let's see, $120 million, then yeah, put your name on the damn thing. However, I argue that this complete ownership of the movie, paired with his past successes, is the big reason for Megalopolis' failure.
We leap into the unknown.
Saying the same thing over and over again doesn't make it sound cooler. Saying the same thing over and over again doesn't make it sound cooler. Saying, yes, I get that he's drunk, but we don't get anything out of what he's saying during the scene other than he's drunk. Monologues and dialogue in this movie are something else, because they're so wildly inconsistent, and this inconsistency serves no purpose to the plot or characters, so we end up with lines like,
not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape, finding yourself in the ranks of the insane.
Only those in a nightmare are capable of praising the moonlight.
What if what connects power also stores it?
The thing is, these quotes are cool in a vacuum, but when that's the entire basis of what the characters are saying, it just bogs down the story. Because of this, the characters lack a voice, so we don't even get a sense of who they are, or how they'd react to a given situation. It's far more interesting when a character has a philosophy, rather than being the mouthpiece for one. And just when I try to get along with these serious philosophical lines, I'm hit by lines like,
So go back to the club.
Revenge tastes best swallowed in the tricks.
1, 2, 3. Yippee-yay.
What do you think of this boner I got?
They say the only thing bigger than Hamilton Grass's bank account is his prick.
well, it's awfully convenient that I'm a huge prick too, because I ain't gonna let that shit slide. I'd understand the weirdness if it somehow meshed together or served a purpose, like American Psycho or Interstellar, but this feels more like a load of shower thoughts loosely strung into a narrative. This could be attributed to Megalopolis being in Coppola's head for over 40 years, but that makes it even more odd that he never escaped the brainstorming phase. Oddly enough, I want to compare this to Robert Rodriguez's Spy Kids and Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which are full of silly, goofy lines and visuals, but then they randomly hit you with lines like,
For every person who dreams up the electric light bulb, there's the one who dreams up the atom bomb.
or,
Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
and this works because they're so scarce. Conveying mature themes is hard, especially in kids' media, but muddying the waters with all these weird moments doesn't make the message, progress is good, any deeper. There's a charm and simplicity, which is that it can lead you to many interpretations, or simply a strong connection with the character. Media like this highlights just how important it is to respect your audience, even when that audience is just kids. If Megalopolis kept these curveballs to a minimum, then maybe the tone would be less whiplashy, and we could focus on what Francis Ford Coppola is trying to spoon-feed us. Or better yet, he doesn't spoon-feed us at all and lets his symbolism breathe. When you have a movie that simultaneously tries to preach to you, while also trying to compel you with unorthodox visuals, you unfortunately show that you don't believe your audience can understand your vision, but that you also want them to try. Since the plot is such a mess, it's kinda hard to track the conflict, but there's a lot of well-planted seeds which just don't lead anywhere meaningful. For example, Wild Platinum, yes, her name is Wild Platinum, is annoyed with Caesar because he doesn't pay much attention to her, instead focusing on his mega grind set. And she sees his rich uncle, Crassus, on TV, whom she'd interviewed before. There's a lot of juicy drama to be gotten here, let's see what happens. She just becomes his wife off screen. How interesting. Caesar's whole goal is that he wants to build a new utopian city, but he struggles because people like it the way it is. But then, out of nowhere, the city gets destroyed by debris from a nuclear Soviet satellite. How convenient for him! Caesar's framed, sleeping with a minor. 10 seconds later, Julia gets him exonerated. Caesar says he lost his power, which he never uses, by the way, and 10 seconds later, he regains them to still never use them. There's no tension, no character development. The story escalates randomly and resolves just as instantly. He gets shot. 10 seconds later, turns out the Megalon can replace way better. Okay, let's talk about the Megalon now. The Megalon is the building material invented by Caesar off-screen, and part of his dream of Megalopolis is that it would be made of the stuff. And apparently, besides being a building material, it's imperishable. It grows. You can wear it? It acts as a prosthetic, a TV screen, and of course the aforementioned brain replacement. And he has enough of it to build an entire town? Good thing Caesar's not the villain. Between this stuff and the time-stopping powers, he'd give fucking Thanos a run for his money. Yet he chooses to make a glowy version of those airport flat escalator sidewalk things. So I feel like it's a bit warranted if I get upset that his face is made out of Moving on.
And if it's a boy, he'll be named Francis.
What? Megalopolis frustrates me because of its potential. It's an original, creative passion project with a massive budget, made by a renowned director. It conceptually had the opportunity to be an epic masterpiece. We have a genius architect who created a miracle material, funded by a billionaire uncle, who needs to battle many who wish to oppose his dream, such as a power-hungry ex, the current mayor and former leading prosecutor in a murder case against him, and Shia LaBeouf. And I know Francis Ford Coppola purposefully avoided all the conventional elements of the movie, but it unfortunately lacks a single element that's strong enough to carry the others. When you leap into the unknown, you prove you are free, but you might also want to bring a parachute. It feels like he's trying to write a movie that will end bad now, so that it can age well for later. and only then will we all be proven wrong. But the beauty of things that age well is that they rarely intend to. Passion and uniqueness behind that project is what makes it stand the test of time, and that is something you cannot artificially replicate. Maybe this movie fears success, because if it were successful, then where would the underdog story be? But again, people don't decide if things get to age well. They just do. And to suggest that humanity is not ready for his work of art is insulting, and is why I believe that Francis Ford Coppola shot this movie in the foot. Now, some of you may be thinking, if you're confused by this movie, there's actually a behind-the-scenes documentary where we get to plow through the riches of Francis Ford Coppola's Emersonian mind. And I've avoided talking about it, because if something doesn't come across on the page or screen, then it has failed to communicate. As a writer or director, you can't pop yourself into the movie theater and try to justify certain decisions, as much as he may want to. With all that said, I actually think that Francis Ford Coppola has very noble intentions. He says during an interview with Stephen Colbert that movies are similar to fast food, in that they're safe and cater to as large of an audience as possible. But my gripe with this movie is that if you want to pull people away from fast food, you can't give people some odd, pretentious dick and tell them that it's amazing just because you've branded your name on it. But you should dedicate your soul to making a food taste so delicious that they will never crave fast food again. There's a quote by Christopher Lee where he says that the most dangerous thing young actors can do is believe in their own publicity. But I feel the same is true for old directors. As an artist, you can't stick your name on everything and expect it to be renowned. Maybe brands and corporations can get away with it, but not artists. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. And if there's something I missed or something you don't agree with, then leave a comment down below. See ya.